Hmm. Set them high settings and high position locations 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Really understand the correlation system to position line directions. It's recognizing your sets and how you see yourself locations through perception. Today in line setting and high line rotation interference, you guys are going to go into levels of 2 and to 3. Now, the 23 set lines in high center interference is going to put you in your Fibonacci swirl lines, into your quantum inset lines, into cotillion interference of zero line track location. This is position of I9 operation string. This is applied to division locations into 2 tracks. Now, the 2-track line center sets its position locations, the levels of higher line setting. This rotation spin cycle, it sets a Fibonacci swirl, because you're in set location to computer chips, and the computer chip has to recognize the activation line setting. And this is the position locations where you come into shadow work, shadow lands. You have to face the fear that fears the most. It's all levels of illusion locations. So changing the schematic line position of its own design is reconstructing your set lines and position location in your own perceptions, because it's you dealing with you facing you in all line center, nothing else, nothing more. Okay, so you are creating what you want to create through your egos and your alter ego location settings. Once you recognize these line settings, because you go into higher level locations to your metric surface, it's a high communication system, position location and direction line settings. Shadow work is all numbers of 1 signal. 1 setting line interference of light and track locations into dark set locations. Dark doesn't exist, okay? But see, the dark has to exist in set lines of communication. So think of it this way: light and dark is light. So there's a dark signature of a reflection line conditions of its alter ego line condition, which is a mirror resolution line positions of you facing you. And changing that fear line setting to its illusion location doesn't exist. It's what you're creating. If you get a connection to the setting line interference and direct location to your system, you have to recognize what you're doing through light signature locations of patterns. Okay, see the light communication? So they want to watch. See, with shade, there's shadows. See, there's a recognition line setting. Okay. Now, really recognize the communication of patterns, electrical line settings into its watch interference. Applied division location as the clock system locations. As soon as I change it, it changes its direction. See? See? There's the half pipe, gypsy. See? Travels line, position location, direct locations. And I change it again. It's all in light signature line setting. Okay. So setting positions all levels of view is understanding the track lines of interference. This has a communication set lines, and this triangles its set line interference. So setting in positions of its masculinity is its box positions of pi, time sequence timeline setting. In set location of triangle is set line communications in femininity. And a feminine line interference is its divinity that has its duality. The duality line has its position location high system. So you have to get in a full correlation system to your shades, your shadows, and your lights. As Val comes into all levels of bounds correlation system, she's already been through this line setting to schematic locations. So she knows exactly how to face these head on. You're centering your calculations of your fear tracks, which is all levels of lights, shades, and shadows. The shadow lands of you is your shadow self. You have to recognize that line communication because you have the sun of light and you have the moon of shadow. So this is the deeper side locations into your dark side locations of your moon setting. This all it sets its rotation system, position, location, directions. But you have to start recognizing all these things because it's all connected to you in all set locations. When somebody said something to you right away, are you going to get in connections to understand what's going on? So if you understand the process, you realize it's positioned to locations to keep you down in vibration setting. Now that's a position location of a trigger that needs to understand its surface. Now, if you're in that relation to its position of its rotation system to all levels of a dark line setting, high line or rotation interference, you're creating it on your own. You're setting your signals, you're changing the schematics, you're changing the story frame. It's no longer in set location, so it doesn't matter. You've already created location because somebody said it was real. That's the problem. That's your shadow. Now, if it's not your shadow, it's somebody else's shadow. You got to be cautious what you do through perception line settings. So once you start believing these things, your reality becomes this location. And if it becomes its locations, your perceptions are levels of awareness to high setting interference. So you're no longer in the communication of its truth line interference. You're in a program set location to a shadow line setting that's not releasing its position location to its program locations, right? So shadowing your set lines in your communications of its surface is all about you surfacing you into your own triggers of yourself, because the only thing you're fighting against is you. Nothing else, nothing more. Your future adaptation is waiting for you. Okay? So if you understand that process, then you understand the importance of what you're coming into. Okay? The future adaptation is there in signal. It's waiting on position of commanding line rotation. So in that position line direct locations, it's you facing you. And when you face these things, you face them in so many line communications into abyss. Now this abyss comes into line interference. What do you do with the locations of a balloon? You pop it. What happens when you pop it? It's gone. It's just air that just disappears, right? So if it's just air, what's inside? Nothing. It's just air. So in that set line and high line rotation interference, you're putting stuff that doesn't exist, but you want it to exist. Now, if you want to create a shadow, you created a shadow. But is it your shadow or is it somebody else's shadow? And you have to understand your universe to somebody else's universe, because what you're perceiving is your universe on top of somebody else's universe. Not only that, but you have your shadow work to work with, and you got somebody else's shadow work with, because you start believing in these things through its process location, setting line and position location, and what's schematic line interference. Setting your position locations all levels of you. It's you having problems with you, nobody else. Okay? So once you start believing in these things, it starts creating its own realities. Now, which reality do you want to live in? Somebody that gives you something that doesn't make any sense to a set location? Doesn't make any sense. I don't know. Where'd you get the information? First party, second party, third party, fourth party, five party, six party, seven party, eight party, 12 party. So in that line communication, you're going to link a chain. And that's all you're doing is you're giving information out. And every time you're going through transmitting and receiving locations, what's happening? So in that connections, you're setting up what? Symbols, shapes, letters, numbers, vortex and communication, solar text line settings. Hey, did you hear about this today? That was pretty amazing. What are you talking about? Oh, I saw this. It was so cool. What's that you were talking about? Well, this connection to the dark line interference line direct location was high channel and position location offsetting. Wow, that's cool. See what just happened? Wow, that's cool. So now you've taken on not just your shadow work, but somebody else's. So when you start believing in these things, what does it do to your solar direct line settings? Put you in a backlog system. Put you in a backlog system. Put you in a backlog system. Understand? 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 No, I don't. No, I don't. No, I don't. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Huh? 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 Everything has to be balanced. So if you're not balanced with this line position, it's waiting, right? So it's got to come in position, location, and direction. So this is where you're standing in position locations. Now, when you come into position locations, right? Why? Because you start believing more and more, right? And every time they come in this line direction, you keep going lower down. But once you surface into your own shadow work and realize you are the truth of you and locations into your position location product line setting, you put your position higher than everybody else. And this looks up and flops, right? And what happens in some locations? You come back down, you communicate because it's your shadow. Fly together. So always recognize the communication to all levels of having an open concept of your setting. Really understand the track locations from listening to understanding. To be understood is to understand you, and always informs. You are facing you every single day through triggers. And if it's a trigger, somebody is triggering you through locations which needs to be surfaced. And when you need to be surfaced, it's all in positions of you, nobody else. You can't blame anybody else but yourself. And this is all unified. And it's all correlated to line, center line, and rotation in its direct location settings. Okay? So as in sequence line position of patterns, it's really recognizing communications to set location of settings. This is all levels of its avatar stream set locations. Now the team sets high setting, put you guys in a higher channel streamlines and set location your shadow lines. Okay, recognition lines settings of box locations into 4 channel streamlines. Okay. Now setting line position of 2 and set locations equal line conditions in position of 3. Setting your position line directions. So 2 comes in setting and 3 comes in setting. So that's put you into 23 track lines. So the 23 line centers comes into its hanger and set locations. Hanger line, center location, equal lines. Now this is where it comes into time sector line position, equal line conditions, position locations, setting sector and position of quadrant setting. Okay, so the quadrillion in line center rotation sets line settings, setting a high interference direct location, position line direct locations into .01 line setting into 0.1 location. So you got .01, .01. The track interference line position locations come set lines of dot line settings into docile calculations of 0.2, into docile communication into line centers of position line centers of .3, setting correlation of time sectors over pi correlation system, putting track line centers into the levels of 6 observation, 6-dimensional line rotation slash equal line condition of 7, 7 line position of 8, 8 position of 9, 9 position location of 10, and 10 line positions of 11, setting correlation system in conscious line streams. It sets lines of shadow or communication setting in rotation interference done by equation. All right, so now your central line communication system is now in a charge line setting. Okay, your computer chips are now in 23 sets in time sector. Congratulations. All right, setting signals in high setting is really recognizing communication programs. One more chart lines and high line rotation interference. Setting signal rotation setting interference and specification interactions. Okay, don't look at this, look at me. You have to look behind setting line interference. To understand the dimensional line interference, you start looking at me, you'll start seeing this move. When you start to see this move, you're starting to how it's all created. So this is correlation to this line setting. And this is how you apply it to the locations. You start with this location, and this is how it channels into its frame of high center locations. So this is what I just created in all line center into back force lines at future adaptation line center. Anything through back force is position of reference. You're referencing correlation set lines. Setting position location 2 equals 3, and set lines in a high center of 2, line communication of 3 sets. Now, once you understand that, you come into your pyramid set rotation in correlation setting, high division. Setting communications and position locations into new ground sighted rotations. See how that comes in set location? Now, you get a 3-line triangle, sets line position locations of lulls. Now, this comes into another positions of a flywheel set location. Now, the flywheel sets line division, trying to find the balance and rotation setting line interference. There's the intelligence. See the intelligence? All right, so as it comes into recognition of line, inner line rotation interference, high direct location, position locations, comes into channel, streams position locations, higher levels of high setting. That comes into higher measure. Measure line and rotation in set locations, higher travels in set location settings. This opens all line center rotation in its direction. Setting position location scan lines and set lines of center lines and communication to its point system location in directions, done by equation. All right, so recognizing positions of high setting is putting yourself in set locations. Now you got an avatar line interference. Now you got the 23 locations of box, equal line conditions of a triangle, set locations, all right? So that's how it's set up. So you set up box line setting into a triangle set locations inside position. But that's not in set line division. So you got a reset location of 2 sets line positions, sets a new security panel into a new pyramid setting. Now the 3-line center comes into, you guessed it, the Fibonacci swirl set location of center lines. This opens up a new solar generation streamline into a new ground center line rotation interference into a magnetic highway informational line of a dimensional circle and set location to high levels of channel and high communication to its metric communication setting, done by equation. All right, so setting signals and high setting, high line rotation interference of Fibonacci swirls and set rotation and position line direct location is one line setting in one setting, okay, and set locations into set, okay? So you got 23 set lines. So you got 2 here, you got 3 here, set locations. So 23 is set lines in high setting, okay? That's where you are in position. Now the track interference comes into ground line rotation setting position. Setting correlation system sets line position location of flux capacitor. Okay. This channels its diamond core line center, sets line interference to higher communication setting into 1, and position location of 2, and position locations of 3, and position locations of 4, and set location settings. Getting you guys ready to get into 24 signals. Now, the setting line and rotation interference, as of comes in line rotation interference, future adaptation is in zero line position of one sector in correlation setting. The zero line position center its correlation system sets another dimensional line rotation streamline into 12 set locations. 12 line center sets up another measure line rotation to Fibonacci and oral. The orbital line center rotation comes into high channel location of an orb setting rotation setting done by equation. Now, coming into set lines of all correlation system, you come into the line setting interference of videograph line rotations. So you got 23 set lines in position location of 0, 0, 0, 0, and position of 0. That's where you are, set location of video line settings. Now, the video line center sets line rotations as 3 over 3, 3 line conditions of position, and set locations into 2. 2 line centers comes into all levels high setting. Now this comes in position location, direct location, another scan rotation, and set location, new ground center rotation. Now the ground rotation sets a line communication in 3, 3 line crosses over to 4, setting position locations times in line center to 1 T set. So the XT 1000 line stream it sets lines into E line conditions 2, its velocity into volume into vector correlation setting, high line position location, track line position levels in high center locations and sit line conditions in position 23 into one line setting in position location of 0 line 3 in set locations into 2 sets. E-line conditions, equal line conditions in position location is 5 million units in set lines in high center location of travels done by equation. All right. Going through the magnetic force line of channel lines is a gamma sigma. Now the gamma sigma sets line position of code signals in high center location, position of direct location settings, puts position location into 0 line rotations into all set locations. Now coming into correlation line rotation is set lines in higher position locations in all level setting into another dimensional rotation to its swirl set location, putting position locations into another line setting in another line rotation interference, line position location attraction, putting position locations into 2, putting position location into 3, bring in 2 line setting in here and 3 line communications here line setting, come into its triangulating set, triangulation position location all levels. Now the sun line in rotation, the inner line position location comes into 2, sun line position of 2. So at the line position of 6, 6 equal location of 7, 7 boxes locations, back force line setting, high line its reference, bring in time lines, time sequence of times pi into all line positions. Now this is the astrological line position after connection position and after projection line into rotation position. Box is 6 in line interference, 6 equals 7 in line rotation interference, 6 position locations into all line setting, 7 comes in position location line interference, 7 over 2 and 2 over 6 in line rotations in position location of box line and a rotation spin cycle and set location high setting done by equation. Now, coming into high signals is really recognizing the alpha channel communications, all right? So we come into all position locations into alpha, we come into mega, and we come into micro, and we come into macro. All right, so this is a memory line setting. This is a memory line loss line setting, and this is a memory of the unforgiving setting in position of its awareness location. Setting correlation set lines and high line rotation is one item locations and one graph line, send a video graph line interference location at gamma, setting line position of 0, 0, 0, 1 locations. All right, setting communication to its memory line interference. So you got track interference, a loss transition, and 2 line settings and high interference. That's 2 line positions, 2 line positions, 2 line positions. Equal line connection of 6. Now the up line center changes the location of box line center. Box position of its atom line in rotations changes alpha weight by center locations in a travel communication setting. It rotates its spin cycle line location to its Hall level setting interference of block locations into a flux capacitor set locations, into line position of new line center circle line rotation interference, setting correlation system in direct locations. So that's 6 over line setting and 7 locations of each Each sets some line position location to its measure in correlation system, setting correlations in position location of 2, and line position location of its memory, setting communication of its atmosphere, line center location of its atom, rotation spin cycle, high center interference, and line rotation position locations, all levels of Merkaba, in another solar generation line center, magnetic highway information system, new ground line rotation interference into a tube line center rotation to its position location of traction. Done by equation. All right. So how's everybody doing so far on set line communications? Now you guys are set lines of millions and billions set lines and capacity settings. So you can understand more learning schematics and high center line position location track settings. Really start recognizing number sequence patterns. The pattern line rotation interference is all set locations. So this is where we channel set lines, because your connections is your quantum lines. This is like physics 101, mechanics on 101, line interference, the metaphysics line position location, the psychological line connection, high setting, all levels of 6/7 locations over 8, line center location of 9, position location of traction. Really start recognizing your communications of your navigation settings and location schematics. This opens all position locations of your line communications to factors over pi. So setting correlation setting high interference, SAM communications, CAMI line settings, all levels of TARA, Jim Rocks, Trinity line interference, airbender correlations, all levels of Heather position of Gypsy, Leah, high center location JP, set lines of offset with Geneva, high center interference, indirect location Nikki, Johnny, Guardian, set lines of Andy, any locations of Laura, today's structures, Val, correlations of Chris is a Gypsy line communication system, high line travels, high center positions, high level position line settings, Stacy line communication system, all levels of high setting. Put position line direct locations into travel communication line rotations, all levels of high center rotation interference, commander line rotations, all levels of correlation setting and high direct line condition, position high setting, putting position locations all levels, setting communication settings and high travels and high center rotation in the direct location settings. So it's amazing how we come into all correlation system into our computer chips of rotation setting and position location and direction. Down by equation. All right. Now, as you guys are into higher level setting, you're in 23, right? 23 eagle eye conditions into box, eagle eye conditions into triangle set locations, into higher level communication. Now, understanding the Merkaba is set lines, the center rotation set line, the flux capacitor is position of 4, and position of 4 eagle eye conditions, 5 in channel lines into a new pyramid set lines in high travel location. So putting your position of direction is really understanding what is going on with you through 5 line signals, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, setting position location, all level setting into another travel communication. Setting correlation system of 0 line settings into backsports locations into high center interference of travel communications in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's 12 line setting into a half pipe and set locations into 1, 2, 3. So that'd be 3 equals 6 and line conditions equals the moon line rotations and position locations of pi. Okay. So you have to start recognizing your half pipes, your correlation sets and direct locations, because these circuit pockets sets lines and position location of 4 measures. This comes into north and it comes into east, you come into west and you come into south line into your diamond core setting. So you come into expansion, 2 set lines of a high line position, put you in higher correlation settings into levels of memory set locations, center correlation system into block surface. Now the block surface higher channels its position of directions, channels back in correlation setting. Okay. As it comes into certain locations, you come into higher levels of correlation set lines into project location settings. So it's all about going forward, going back, going forward, going back, going forward, going back. You have to recognize line interference because you're opening up more magnetic line channels in set locations. The high lines of the ground line center rotations changes seconds per unit. Now the 0 line rotations, 0 line position locations comes into measure over 2 set locations. Now the 2 line center sets a higher line position location to its pyramid setting, puts you in a higher communication in a rotation in its surface, 2 position locations in its film projection locations into 1, 2, 3, 4 into 5 line communication system, crossing signals and high travel line position locations to all levels line center into a position line setting to a Fibonacci swirl and line position of 33 line rotations and correlation system into your schematics over channel over pi. Now the schematic line interference line position location changes its high position locations into all correlations into 3 channel operators and string sets. Now, the line communications comes into film project location when it comes into hieroglyphics, aerodynamics, line setting, line interference, and film project location and sun codes. Sun code sets line position to 0 gravity. 0 gravity comes into a tube set line rotations, into 6 line position of travels, into 9 line settings and high line rotation interference, and set location to higher position. Okay, down by equation. All right. Recognizing time shifts. Time shifts in the line setting. Really understand the formation locations. So we come into pyramid set lines now. You guys are higher levels. Okay, we come into this position. All right. So remember, there's a lot of communications into lacing lines of 3-line communications. All right. Recognizing communication to levels in ground setting, crop circle location settings. Okay. Recognizing communications to this line setting, okay, to this line setting. There's all different kinds of positional teleportation, right? So understanding that teleportation is the G line setting. Now you have a G in position of O in position location, bracket line connections in cell levels of geometric operation of its design locations. All right, so really recognize the communication of what's going on through 23 line settings and rotation interference. Put you guys into a solid generation of high setting as a line communications comes into this position location, high setting rotation. Now getting into that position location comes into this line setting, which is 2 line settings of 6 equals line position of 6 in set locations. So that's 2 half pipes in set locations, right? Now the 6 line center sets another 6 line rotations, but it goes in the opposite cycle, crisscrosses its rotation spin cycle in the other direction, setting line and rotation interference coming into schematic line interference and direct location to the hologram string line and rotations to 3 units in correlation system, 2 new teleportation string lines, and 2 line centerings and 6/6 in set line positions to your connections to what? Throw pattern correlation to another ground line setting rotation interference. So it sets line communication to its pyramid set location settings at the top location. Done by equation, right? So you have to recognize your crop circles, and you guys have your test review and evaluations. So let's say you get positions of a beta, setting line setting signals. This is beta. All right, so beta comes into theta. Okay, so theta locations into Y line setting. Setting communication to flux capacitor, equal is flux. Okay, send locations, all right? There's flux, all right? Now, flux line, center line, and rotation interference and set locations to this line position and set location setting and crop circle location setting. Now, the rotation spin cycle sets line positions back and set locations into 3 communication and teleportation string lines. Now, that rotates its spin cycle and sets up a new satellite communications into a telephone pole and 3 communication line settings. Now, this rotates the spin cycle, guys. Now you got a core line set in a rotation to another line rotation into 0 line rotations into 0 positions, 0 positions, 0 positions, and 0 position locations, right? Sending correlation system to another teleportation streamline in position of the opposite system locations. Now the opposite position location comes into higher levels of channel. This rotates its spin cycle into the center correlation of its graph line center of its road. Now the road comes into line interference. Y line center sets line locations into its umbrella, sending line location to its ether line in rotation to its energy into its equation locations, high center and position location, and track line setting in set locations, done by equation. All right. Recognizing what you are doing through your flux capacitors, because your channel lines are this now. Okay, you have to recognize what's going on with you. Okay, there's your computer chips, every single day line setting. So it's got 3 line track in set location and dimensional rotation. Recognizing flaw erection line setting and rotation interference. Center correlation system in downshift line connections and set line position locations to a star line setting. See the Merkaba coming in a course line and travel communications into channel line positions. If you look really, really close, you can see the intelligence in set locations high setting. There's the intelligence. Wow. Done by equation. Everything that you do is you traveling through you to higher line position. Your avatar is already in the future setting. So you're doing coordinates to get there and set lines of travel position locations when you come into my channel of streamline interference and space-time creator, setting coordinates in your set locations to your geometric operation directions. The GPS lock line settings are already set up in position, location, directions. See the intelligence? See the neck? See the eye line settings? See the no line rotation interference? See, this is high center line and position location, all of those. So setting position of direct locations is getting more complicated now because you guys are now at a higher levels of capacity, higher level positions to your computer chip line interference, your quantum continuing line interference, and to zero in line position of one sector line conditions. That's where you guys are. So you understand the one line setting travels communication, zero line travels and communication. Everything travels, everything has to travel. Even this travels to its line communications. Setting communication, another dimension line is security position. For position line condition, another silicon rotation, another security line division. Right? So you're just adding. But you have to protect your system location that's connected in line setting. Now, this is where you have to understand the integration. The integration to the line communication comes into your shadows. Now, shadow is position of a trigger line and rotations. I'll show you exactly what a shadow is. The wires, a correlation setting. That's an electrical line connection that's in direct location to your center communication setting. That's a rotation spin cycle. That's off calculation line interference. That's in direct locations to your anagram line setting. Everybody knows what an anagram is, right? It's putting everything all together. So you get line specification, you start with this line setting. Okay, so let's start with that. That's cat, right? The center correlation system is A. Center position location is now T. And center line interference of T is ATC. That's a trigger. Recognition line centers of Earth, high center location of space, and Earth line rotations. That's 3 track line centers into sonar line rotation, into travel communications, into 6 line connections, into a half pipe line setting. Now, the rotation line interference location is a trigger. Setting correlation system into Earth and space line setting should be position locations into coming out through cat setting. Setting correlation system, you're out of the trigger locations back in setting. So recognizing line interference of A, T, and C, it doesn't make any sense because it's a trigger. You're allowing yourself to set line interference. So what you're doing is you're setting up an anagram to resurface line position locations and to Scrabble. Scrabble line position locations is a crossword puzzle. Setting correlation system in direct location is center generation line settings and lighting in a line rotation interference position location of wire calculation stream line settings. Putting position location to Bach line. Setting line position location to measure. You got cat and set location setting line interference. And setting high interference. So you come into an S line, you come into an ST, you come into A position locations, you come into a B setting. And so this is all about understanding the track lines into triggers, how it sets lines of communications. You always have to find the letter in correlation system to its number of its sequence pattern in correlation setting into relation position location of its shadow line. That's nothing but a reflection of you that you have the surface location and your direct location to setting communication. All right, so setting line in and line rotation interference. This is a crossword puzzle. Understand location settings, high division locations, all levels of high center rotations. Okay, position line directions. Okay. All right, so it's all about finding the position location of its word, cat, right? So you take cat out, set locations, send it to high line centers, box it in 3 line and position locations because it's in 3 letters, right? So correlation system, send an energy graph line, streamline and rotation spin cycle, set its dimensional setting. Now it's connected. Now it's protected. Setting line interference locations E, F, L, T, S, A, B, C, D. Setting correlation system. Setting line in and line rotation interference. So what you're doing is you're setting correlation system in bounce correlation setting that's creating a high center interference. Shadow works as an anagram. Now, if you understand the anagram, you understand the line communication setting, line and rotation interference of space anomaly correlation setting, position galaxy shift lines that's neutralizing its communication of its atmosphere, hemisphere, atmosphere, bioatmosphere, hydrosphere line interference, ultra communication line streamlines, high line interference, and metric communication line center, intelligent position location all levels, operation high setting, and position location to all levels of high setting interference. Center correlation system is all levels of U through position line direct location settings. Okay. So now you understand the importance of what you have to do is get into your own shadow work. It's an anagram of you that you have to bring back to correlation system, back to cat. Recognizing the communication line setting is putting all position locations back in track locations to your settings because you got light communication and you got dark communication. You got lights and you got dark line setting. So levels of communication to its dimensional setting. That's what light dark stands for. Recognition line interference is bringing you back in correlation system out of its equation location of its teleportation stream set locations into higher communication of its ground setting and crossover locations. All right, done by equation. Lights of dimension. All correlation, system line, and line rotation interference. Here's the intelligent locations. There's the intelligence. Okay? Setting position locations, all levels of higher center line rotation interference correlation settings. There's always intelligence in your set lines, your frame set location, your picture frame settings. Recognize the communication of lights and dimensions, not light and dark. So everything that is given to you is what? Light. Light is dark, light is dark, light is dark, dark is light. So light is dark, light, dark is light. So in specifications, you're limiting one timeline all at once in correlation. Multi-pass. That's it. So a lot to understand to set locations, all levels of number of sig locations, how you get confused to your anomalies, right? Because it's you and all levels of you, nothing else, nothing more. So center line interference location, let's get into one line setting. Okay, there's one. Okay, here's one. So that's a fancy one, and that's one, right? So fancy one, equal line conditions of one, equal locations into its box. How does it equal into its box? Well, position of one position of one. So that's two panels at two line settings, right? So you got 1, 1 in set locations. So what is the equal line setting? You take the equal line setting to one position here, setting top, you take the equal line setting to the ground location, there's the box. That's how it correlates to position location and balance, guys. You have to learn how to go fancy into normal set locations. So this is line interference, line of rotations of a trigger, setting correlation system, back in a balance communication system. 1 + 1 is set line and position location track interference. How you take the equal line center to equal location, which is two line setting, and rotations into top, into bottom, and position location into side location. There's the box. Done by equation. Position of direction line settings is the recognition, high line, and rotation interference, how you correlate set locations to your numbers, letters, shapes, and symbols, guys. Okay, I just showed you. Anything fancy, it doesn't matter. There's always a way to get balance and bring it into shadows of light. Okay? All right, so recognizing high settings and really recognizing communication program locations is putting you into higher channels of operation streamlines. It's all about balancing everything into the light because you guys are in your avatars now and you have to recognize these things every single day you get up in the morning. All right? Like I said, if you get in 3 in position of 4, 34, how do I turn that into a shape? Triangulation of 3 in set locations to its setting. So setting correlation set lines and high center interference is putting direct locations into its set locations. All right. Now, once you understand that, you come into this position locations. That's a trigger. That's its balance. Okay. So there's 3 line settings. Okay. So you got 1, 2, and 3 set location, right? And 4 is the box location in the balance line setting. All right. That's 34 in a box location. So this is light, this is shadow. Hooah. Okay? You see how that works? Setting line interference, if you bracket its location, it doesn't matter, but you have to recognize the communication. This is its trigger. This is its balance. So it's a triangulation of 3, guys. There's the pyramid. There's the rotation. There's the ground setting. There's the crop circle. Hooah. Done by equation. Look really close, you can see the intelligence. See, there's the eye. Always intelligence in everything line position. So really recognize the communication line settings, guys. This helps you in all ways, the forms. To balance everything you do is 1, not 2. That's how 1 + 1 = 3. Masculinity, femininity, and 3 into 1. Okay. Living all timeline, secant line interference. If your set location at 34 interference, you're always going to be in shadow work. But if you want to balance line position of lights and dark line rotation interference, you come in at 34 into set location of a 3 triangle set into 4 position line directions into a square setting into direct locations of all light track locations into 1 equals line position of signal. Hoo-ah! All right, so that's why you guys have a problem. Shadow work is not what you see through an image. Shadow work is what you create through a problem, which is connected to your schematic line setting, which is off signal location that doesn't have its correlation of its cat. So you're setting locations not through CAT, but you're signaling its panel line interference when you go into higher communication that transmitting and receiving. You're getting information from who? You or someone else. That's a trigger. So if you're triggered by somebody, that's something that you have to surface, which is what? An anagram. That's the balance of confusion. So getting into that position line direct locations opens all levels of view through 34 line center locations of balance or 35 line center rotations of its interference of its shadow location. Okay? So that should help you out. Unconditional love of everything, guys. That's what it is. Bringing everything all into one set locations. That's fine. Reset line and line and rotation interference, high direct locations. All right, setting communication system. This is how easy it's going to be done. So we set locations of this. Danielle's in this set location. We're going to line in this and put it into a happy smile. Okay. All right. So that's Danielle. That's Danielle now. Okay. Done by equation. Right. Put in align position locations into align position track line centers into align center levels. In set location at ground, set line interference, into set location at scan lines, and set line interference and position locations into 3, into 4 line centers of 5, 6 line positions, back into a happy face location. Done by equation. That's how it works. Everything has to be balanced. The balance of you is line communication of light. Nothing surfaces and everything are light locations. Now, if you see the shadows and shades, you have balance with that. It's already on your face. But if you don't recognize the shades and the shadows, you're being triggered through light and shades and shadows of its system location just by its own operation of its own schematic line settings. That's an anagram. Okay. Off interference is line setting, line and rotation, and position location track interference. You really understand how to come from this to this. You want to live this or this? You choose. It's that simple. So it's not that complicated, guys. You complicate everything all on its own because you're reaching higher levels now and you have to understand the schematic line interference. You're creating something that doesn't exist. And once it exists, it's creating its own what? Its own shadow. And if it creates its own shadow, it's going to create its own light. And if it creates its own light, it's going to create its own space and time, its anomaly, and it's going to create its own dimensional location of its space into its GOD. And not only that, it's going to create its own planetary system of its own formational alliance. And not only that, it's going to create its own high setting, high position location to its high line connections to its structure of its own design location setting of its own avatar, its own alter ego. Okay, so these are the things that you have to understand through operation. And again, do you want to live this or this? You decide. Okay? It's that simple. Because everything that you set up is one in position of line communications of yin and yang. That's it. That's all it is. One. Everything's one. So understanding the track line center and line interference location of light and dark is the position line centers of your shadow works. Getting your position of shadow works sets you free in all correlation system. Understanding line settings of 6 and understanding line position location of 9. Setting correlation system. Now 96 is a trigger. Setting correlation system is back into 6 line connections into 9 line rotations. Setting communication system is 6 over 6 line setting. Okay. 6 over 6. So set line position of 6, set line rotations and locations into 9 set line interference back into set location of yin and yang. Done by equation. It's resetting. That's all it is. Resetting. Because if you can't reset these things, how are you going to understand anything that you do through operation set locations of your letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols? Because all it is it's an anomaly. An anomaly is shifting you in position locations. Are you living through lights or are you living through shadows? And if you're living through shadows, you have to balance that out. You can't get rid of shadows and shades because it's you. You understand? The balance is yin and yang. To understand the position of the balance location is the balance of the masculinity and the femininity of your divinity set locations in your duality line settings into all communications to one setting line interference in position locations. Hooah! 2 into 1. And that's it. Okay? All right. Yeah, releasing is just accepting, Gypsy. Okay? And you're going to higher levels. And you have to surface these things. You have to embrace these things. You have to absorb these things. You have to be thankful that you have your shades, your shadows. You have communications with your masculinity and your femininity of your shadows. You don't just have a masculine of a position of shadow, you have a female too. But it's the balance of one. Everything is one. 1 plus 1 equals 3. Lights, shadows, and you. Boom! That's it. That's all it is. You're balancing everything to one setting. Now, once you get into that position, to higher levels of high setting locations, into your avatar, you understand more levels of you. And once you understand more levels of you, you understand the more processes of levels of you, right? Because you're always going to be faced with this every single day because it's you. It's all levels of you bouncing you into one. That's it. Nothing else, nothing more. Okay? All right, I think that's good. Congratulations, guys. You're in a 23 line setting rotation interference. Setting correlation set lines in quantum quintillion line rotation into 0, 2 now. Okay, you were in 0, 1 line setting. Now you're in 0, 2. Track lines as security perimeters and primary line rotation interference. Tomorrow, we come into 24 line setting into solar stream set locations, position line directions. Adios.